One of the biggest heroes of the 1966 World Cup tournament couldn't have cared less about soccer. When the World Cup trophy was stolen during an audacious heist, a beloved family pet came to the rescue. This is the tale of how Pickles, a mixed collie, saved the World Cup. In 1930, Jules Rimet, the president of FIFA, commissioned the French sculptor Abel Lafleur to produce a trophy for the World Cup. Lafleur was inspired by the Greek goddess of victory, Nike, and created a 14-inch, 8.4-pound trophy consisting of a decagonal cup supported by a winged figure. The trophy was made of sterling silver plated with 14-karat gold, set on a lapis lazuli base. Though originally called Victory, the trophy was renamed the Jules Rimet Trophy in 1946 to honor the FIFA president. The rule Rimet created for the trophy only added to its mystique. Possession of the trophy would pass from one victorious team to another until a nation earned permanent stewardship by winning 3 tournaments. 1966 wasn't the first time the Jules Rimet Trophy was in danger. Hitler was a big soccer fan and sought to increase nationalism by collecting treasures for the Third Reich. When the Nazis looted Italy, the World Cup trophy was on their list. But Italian FA official Ottorino Barassi secretly transported it from a bank in Rome to his home. He hid it in a shoebox and kept the box under his bed. Nazi soldiers broke into his apartment but never found the trophy. On January 5, 1966, the Rimet Trophy arrived in London under tight security. The next day, the English FA displayed it at the live TV screening of the tournament draw. The trophy was then kept secure at the FA headquarters until Stanley Gibbons, a stamp company, was granted permission to include the trophy in a sporting and stamp exhibition at Westminster Central Hall. As part of the security measures, the trophy would be under guard at all times. Despite only having a value of £3,000, the trophy was insured for £30,000. On the morning of Sunday, March 20, the exhibit was closed, but a Methodist church service was taking place on the ground floor of the building. The trophy was secured in a display case in the hall on the second floor, with 2 guards stationed round the clock in an adjacent office. 2 more guards were stationed in another room downstairs, watching over the rare stamp collection. The entrance to the hall was padlocked with a chain going through both door handles. At 11 a.m., one of the guards checked on the World Cup trophy. All was well, but after switching places with the guards downstairs at noon, it was gone. The small lock on the side of the case was broken. Nothing else was stolen, including the much more valuable stamp collection. Scotland Yard was quickly alerted. The case was assigned to the Flying Squad, a branch of the Serious and Organized Crime Command. Police and detectives swarmed Westminster Central Hall searching for clues. It was discovered that one of the metal plates of the door handles that led to the hall had been unscrewed, thus rendering the padlock and chain securing the room useless. The authorities interviewed witnesses. None had seen anyone particularly suspicious. Guard Frank Hudson had noticed a 30-something man with slicked-back black hair who wore a black raincoat. The man was dropped off by a black taxicab at around 11 a.m. He loitered near the bathroom and then used a public telephone in the hall. Margaret Combs, a parishioner also attending Sunday school, saw a balding older man with gray hair who wore an overcoat and a scarf, also loitering in the area. In her several years of attending the church, she had never seen this man. Was either one of these men the thief? Could they have been working together? The FA wanted to keep the theft quiet, but it was too juicy a secret. Word quickly got out, and Monday papers were full of articles about the crime. The FA offered a reward of £3,500. This was a national embarrassment for England. The next day, Monday, March 21st, Joe Mears, the chairman of the Football Association, received an anonymous phone call. The caller stated that Mears would receive a parcel at Chelsea Football Club the next day. The package ended up being delivered to Mears' home. It contained the removable lid of the trophy, along with a ransom note that demanded £15,000 in £1 and £5 notes. The ransom letter also stated that the FA must place the phrase "willing to do business, signed Joe" in the personal ads column of the Thursday edition of the Evening News. If Mears followed further instructions, the trophy quickly would be returned. If the FA informed the police or the press, the letter writer threatened to melt the trophy down into scrap gold. Shortly after receiving the letter, Mears got another mysterious telephone call. A man referring to himself as Jackson changed the instructions from the ransom note. He wanted the ransom delivered in £5 and £10 notes, not £1 and £5 notes. Mears ignored the threat in the letter and contacted the police anyway. He met with Detective Inspector Charles Buggy. The Flying Squad told Mears to place the ad. With the help of a bank, the authorities created a false ransom payment out of bundles of ordinary paper with real money only at the top and the bottom. The decoy ransom was placed in a suitcase. It was decided that 2 police officers would act as Mears' assistants in handing over the money. On Friday, D.I. Buggy and another officer went to Mears' home to await the next call. Mears, an angina sufferer, was so stressed by the situation he had taken to his bed. When Jackson called, Mrs. Mears answered the phone and explained that her husband was unwell before passing the phone on to Mears' assistant, McPhee, aka D.I. Buggy. After some hesitation, Jackson agreed to rendezvous with McPhee at Battersea Park. Detective Inspector Buggy arrived in the Mears Ford Zodiac. A few unmarked flying squad vehicles followed him. Jackson met with Detective Inspector Buggy, who quickly flashed him the briefcase of money. Buggy insisted on seeing the trophy before handing over the money, claiming that he feared that somebody would try to rob him. Jackson climbed into Buggy's car and agreed to lead him to the trophy. Jackson had DI Buggy drive around South London for 10 minutes and then directed him to turn onto Kennington Park Road. Jackson had noticed a flying squad van following them and got spooked. At a traffic light, Jackson hopped out of the car and told Buggy that he was going to get the trophy. After a little back and forth, Jackson ran away. DI Buggy chased after him first with the car, then on foot. He cornered Jackson in a nearby yard and arrested him. Other officers caught up to them and helped escort Jackson to Kennington Police Station. The police quickly discovered that Jackson was a 46-year-old Edward Betchley, a petty thief with a record of fencing stolen goods. Betchley insisted he didn't steal the trophy, he was just the middleman and had been paid £500 for his role. He also said he could retrieve the World Cup if he was granted bail. The police denied him bail and charged him with theft of the trophy as well as breaking and entering. Eyewitness Margaret Combs was able to identify Betchley as the man she had seen in the Central Hall. The police now had a suspect in custody, but the Rimet was still missing. They searched Betchley's home, but found no trace of the missing trophy. Betchley claimed the man behind the theft was known as the Pole. There was an underworld fence named Bernard the Pole Makowski who was well known to the police. He and a corrupt diamond dealer named Gerald Satin were associates of Betchley's. The authorities felt that these two were involved in the crime, but never had enough information to charge them. 7 days after the disappearance of the cup, David Corbett took his mixed collie dog named Pickles for a walk through the Norwood neighborhood in South London he called home. Pickles sniffed around the bottom of a hedge, drawing Corbett's attention to the bundle tightly wrapped in newspaper. Corbett was curious, but a little worried that it could be a bomb, as the IRA was fairly active at the time. His inquisitiveness got the best of him and he picked up the package and tore some paper away. Corbett saw a shining woman holding a dish over her head and realized he had found the World Cup. Corbett promptly took the trophy to Gypsy Hill Police Station. The desk sergeant wasn't impressed. To quote the sergeant, "That doesn't look very World Cup-y to me." Nevertheless, a detective was called in to examine the trophy. He thought it was the World Cup. Corbett and the trophy were then taken to the Cannon Row Police Station, where Harold Mays of the FA verified the trophy was indeed the World Cup. The police then interviewed Corbett, and he realized that he was under suspicion. After several hours of questioning, the police were able to verify Corbett's alibi. He was cleared as a suspect and allowed to leave at 2 a.m. Corbett returned home to find the press camped out on his doorstep. Pickles was celebrated as a national hero. He and Corbett were interviewed and photographed. The Corbett family received rewards totaling £6,000 for Pickles finding the trophy. In comparison, England's players were paid £1,360 each in bonuses for winning the World Cup. Pickles was made Dog of the Year. He received a National Canine Defense League silver medal during a posh ceremony at a fancy Kensington hotel. He was also presented with a year's supply of dog chow. When England prevailed 4-2 in the final over West Germany, Corbett and Pickles were put up in a posh hotel and were the guests of honor at the 1966 World Cup Winners' Banquet. Pickles also appeared on TV and movies, including a British spoof espionage film, The Spy with the Cold Nose. For months afterward, people stopped Corbett and Pickles when they were out for a walk to pet the national hero or to pose for a picture. Edward Betchley received a 2-year prison sentence for his crime. No one else was charged. In 2018, a criminal investigative journalist, Tom Pettifor, researched the World Cup theft and identified the trophy thief as Sidney Cougalier, a petty thief and associate of Betchley's. Scared of all the attention the crime was receiving in the press, he simply discarded the trophy. When the theft initially happened, the English FA secretly met with jeweler George Bird to discuss producing an exact replica of the Rimet in case it wasn't recovered. When the trophy was recovered, the FA asked FIFA for permission to produce a replica. FIFA denied the request, but the FA secretly commissioned Bird anyway. He made a gilded bronze trophy very similar in look to the Rimet. After England won the match, Queen Elizabeth handed the English captain Bobby Moore the real trophy. However, shortly thereafter, when the teams were celebrating with the trophy in the locker room, a policeman came and swapped the trophy for safekeeping. The replica was used on subsequent occasions up until 1970, when the original trophy had to be returned to FIFA for the next tournament. Bird kept the replica hidden for many years since FIFA had explicitly denied the FA permission to create it. When Brazil won the World Cup in 1970 in Mexico City, it was their third victory, so the nation won possession of the Rimet trophy in perpetuity. A new World Cup trophy was commissioned, which is still in use. The Rimet was put on display at the headquarters of the Brazilian Football Confederation. 13 years later, in 1983, the Rimet Trophy was stolen from the headquarters of the Brazilian Football Confederation. It was kept locked in a display case made of bulletproof glass, but the back was made from plywood. Initially, police investigation turned up little, but ultimately several suspects were arrested over the theft. One popular theory alleged that the trophy was sold to an Argentinian gold dealer who melted it down into bars. It wasn't possible since the Rimet wasn't solid gold. Also, when the gold dealer's foundry was tested, the gold residue didn't match the trophy's gold. In 1997, the estate of George Bird put the replica Rimet trophy up for auction at Sotheby's. Though the replica only had scrap metal value of around £1,500, the estate hoped to bank on the emotion associated with the trophy. The reserve price was high, £20,000 to £30,000. Surprisingly, the trophy sold for nearly 10 times the reserve price, £254,500. For several years, rumors had circled around that Bird had the real trophy. Some claimed that once the trophies were swapped in the locker room after the 1966 World Cup Championship match, the English FA never returned the real trophy to FIFA. There was an all-out bidding war between a mystery bidder who was later revealed to be a FIFA representative and other auction participants. Ultimately, the FIFA rep won the auction, but when the trophy was examined, they realized they had just spent a ridiculously large sum on a well-made fake. FIFA arranged for the replica to be lent for display at the English National Football Museum, where it resides today. Now check out the insane history of the NHL Stanley Cup trophy, or what happens to your body when you start exercising.